What I saw left me paralyzed with horror. Her robe was fluttering freely in the wind, and she was running out of a neighbor's apartment that she wasn't supposed to be in. My heart clenched as I realized that the cheating was only the beginning. My wife was hiding something more, something that shattered our vows and seemed an undeniable betrayal. I knew there was no stopping now. We must uncover all the secrets, look deep into the past, and understand how we ended up in this labyrinth of betrayal and adultery. Are you ready to dive into a world of mystery and shocking discoveries? Then get ready for a true saga of infidelity and clashing destinies. Welcome to a story that will shock you and make you wonder, how could this have happened? I'll start with my friend's story. I know them both very well, and generally we were family friends. No backstory on how they met. She is 1 year older than my friend. He was 24 years old at the time. It started when my friend started suspecting his girlfriend of cheating. She was always taking her cell phone with her, even to the bathroom and to the bathroom. Talking on the phone while leaving the room when there was no way to get away from her lover in quotes. The conversation was yes, no. There were other factors of suspicion, but that doesn't matter anymore. A friend told me he could feel it with his ass. As it should have happened, she was burned in an elementary way, an elementary text message that came from a friend. The text was not ambiguous, a blunt declaration of love from a lover. I thought, that doesn't sound like her. I was telling a friend that you're chasing yourself and her. And another text message, which came on the day she was born, set all the dots. She naturally denied everything and swore she hadn't cheated, but my friend has the gift of persuasion, and she confessed to everything, even that he had taken her to a lover himself without knowing it. There were a lot of tears on both sides. The friend forgave her, and somehow they went on living together. To forgive is one thing, but to forget is another. In general, somehow they lived together for another 1.5 years. My friend went away on a business trip for 2 weeks and stayed for 1.5 months. At about the same time, when my friend is on a business trip, my story begins, but about it a little later. Upon arrival, my friend's girlfriend acted excessively affectionate, but 2 hours later provokes my friend into a fight and, accordingly, gets her. After getting her way, she packs the necessary clothes and goes home without explaining anything. The friend, feeling guilty, buys a huge bouquet of flowers and goes to her house to ask for forgiveness. And there she honestly admits that she loves another. At this time, she pretends to be happy with another, and he is with another. Now me. We started dating in 2000. In 2002, our daughter was born. Ordinary, routine family life began. As I wrote above, at the time my friend was on a business trip, or rather, doubts crept into my head much earlier. My wife's unusual behavior contributed to all of this. She began to watch herself, buy clothes every other day, cook food for 3 days at a time, and the like. I began to frantically search for signs of adultery on the internet. I have 100% match, but I am not enough, not caught, not a thief. My beloved went on vacation with the child and a friend of my friend. Yes, the one I just told you about. I took them to the airport and asked her to text me as she was getting on the plane, arriving, checking into the hotel, and generally we usually text each other several times a day when we are apart, but there was silence. I called her, and the next day she asked me to put some money on the phone, although I put 400 rubles in yesterday and it was impossible to run out, so I put another 400 rubles and got silence. I forgot to tell you that her SIM card is registered to me, and so my doubts do not give me peace. What to do? Oh, I am registered Simca, which means that I can order a printout of telephone calls, when and to which number she called, and so I do. Ordered it, it came, started the analysis. Shit, I was wrong to suspect mine, although a second. What are the conversations from Egypt? Not me. Here it is, the first clue. But what is the number? 2 weeks go by, they come back. The first thing I did was stealthily, on her phone, type in the very number and friend. The next day, The whole family was going somewhere. Everyone had already gone out into the yard, but I came back for a small need. I look, there is my wife's phone. Well, I grabbed it to give it back and somehow automatically decided to see what time it was. There was one unread text message. At first I did not even think to read it, because it was from a friend, but yes, I read it. Sweetheart, I love you and miss you very much. Strange texting from a girlfriend, isn't it? I asked my mate to call on it in order to identify who would be suitable, male or female. The friend turned out to be male. Basically, it made sense to me, but I decided to find out who it was. Then I started looking at earlier printouts of phone calls, and oh yeah, that number is seamlessly into another. I write it out, dial it on my wife's phone, sneaky again. Anyway, I find out who it is. Turned out to be a married guy from her job, also has a daughter, but there is no way to make love at work, although maybe I'm wrong. The wife at the time worked in the gaming machine system, and the work was 24 hours a day, you know, like a day through 3. And then I remember that there was a gap of a month and a half. She went to work extra shifts, almost with pleasure. I was at it again, no catches and no thieves. I found a bugging device on the internet, almost bought it, but the climax came sooner. I have a friend, Natasha, really a friend, nothing more. My wife knows her and is very jealous of her. On a day off, late in the evening, word for word, my wife becomes jealous. I do not know how to spell the word to my friend. My nerves were stretched like a string. It is nothing to say. But I cannot stand it, and in response bluntly, and who is Ivan Ivanovich? What was my wife's surprise? You should have seen it. Such a turn of conversation, she clearly did not expect. Eyes for 100 rubles, she blushed and said, "It's not what you think, we just chat." I do not know how I kept myself from a crushing blow to the jaw. I do not hit women in principle. I was shaking all over. My wife quickly packed up and left for her mother's house. The child was at my mother's, my grandmother's, at the time. At the end she said, "I'm going away so you can be alone and think we were just communicating." The anger was very quickly replaced by some feeling that I had been betrayed. A few days later we met to talk. My wife never confessed, although, if you believe what is written on the internet about human behavior, how to recognize a lie, mine is lying, showing all the emotions. As a result, we are still together, but how long it will last, I do not know. I do not want to torture myself with thoughts, was it or not, but thoughts like a contagion does not leave my head. Unfortunately, there is only one person who loses in this situation, my daughter. Now I treat my wife more like a roommate, I guess. Love, no feelings, all extinguish the situation. Now any doubts creep in. Immediately give a stump in the ass. When asked who is to blame, some write both, lies and provocation. The one who cheated is to blame. There is no excuse for such a deed, especially on the part of a woman. From the story of my friend, where there was one time, there will be a second. Maybe I stupidly want to break up, but for some reason I am afraid to admit it to myself. Another interesting incident adds to the poignancy of my self-talk. A few months ago, back in the spring, I met my old friend. We have only in recent years, we each have their own life problems, worries, and so on. We crossed paths quite casually and agreed to meet at the weekend. Maybe a drink in a bar, talk, for life, for this, for everything. But I see that he is somehow too heavy, not how I remember him. And yes, I did not fail. After a few sips of fuel, my old buddy spilled the truth to my mom. Next, a brief first-person account of his story. Back in 2002, we were at a neighbor's birthday party. Her brother came to her. Everything as usual, we sat, drank, ate, talked, in general. Somewhere past midnight, went to his apartment and went to bed. I almost immediately fell asleep. I woke up around 4 a.m. and his wife was not home. I panicked, where his wife could disappear. Out into the hall, I listened, the neighbors some noise. Well, I think they'd probably continue. I knocked on the door. but no one opened it. I did not want to sleep. I began to wait. After a while, the door to the next apartment slowly opened, and my wife sixed to us. And there I was. She was wearing a thin robe, and nothing under it to understand what happened. My wife didn't deny it. She said she just wanted to try the neighbor's brother. He was leaving tomorrow anyway, and she was unlikely to ever see him again. She said she was only interested in him for once. I was disgusted and disgusted. She was talking some nonsense. I packed up and went to my parents. The next day, she begged me to come back, saying that she realized that he was crazy. And what do you think? I came back, not a hint, not a slip, never reproached her, and 4 years later everything happened again, but with more force, improving my professional skills at the seminar. So she met a young man and started an affair with him. She came home after midnight. At the same time, we had a mother-in-law. She did not find herself, and her wife came. Yelling at her mother, I tried to talk to her calmly. But the next day she came by morning. She did not explain her absence in any way. She did not answer the phone. I tried once again to talk to her, to understand what was going on, what happened, and what was necessary to correct it. But no. In response, I received only one thing, that I was the best man in her life, that there was no one better than me in sex. Here they say other. What other I could not understand. And I did not want any more. Something in me snapped. Nothing else began to happen. She was at home in the evenings taking care of her daughter. I watched TV. We just stopped communicating. All conversation boiled down to who would take my daughter to school and what to buy. In a word, we became strangers. One day, I went to my parents after rummaging in the garage. I stayed late. They offered to stay over. I stayed. She realized the morning that I would never go back to her. And then, it was like I was electrocuted when I heard his story. Man, look, he is not himself. No face. I do not wish such a fate for myself. So I need to take the initiative into their own hands, and not bring it to this. But on the other hand, though who knows whether my family life is waiting for a new shakeup in the form of another wife's cheating or not, advise me something. Share your experiences. I'd really appreciate it. Dear listeners, my friends, I want to simplify your lot and save my opinion. I think that it is 100% the same as yours. Yes, treason will happen again. Dear author, 100%. And in order for you to understand that we are so many like-minded here, so to speak, then I will ask subscribers, listeners, who agree with me, put a plus sign in the comments, and do not need to waste time typing unnecessary characters, so that the author, believe me, you are not the first, and unfortunately, not the last, waiting for it many, but not everyone comes out, so to speak, dry of water. Yes, not everyone can make the right decision, namely to take it in time. What happened to your friend, or whoever he is, who told his story? He delayed making a decision. He believed his wife, thought she had changed and understood everything. His story is certainly worse than yours, but who knows what can expect you around the next corner. Now on to the second story. When I found out about my wife's cheating, my universe collapsed around me. I was crushed, experiencing a mishmash of rage and bitterness. But instead of drowning in grief, I decided to do something incredible that would change the course of our destiny. We switched roles. I took her place to understand what had brought us to this point and to find a way out of this abyss of deception. What followed turned out to be much more than role-playing. It became a story that shook my convictions, and I realized that the solution was in our hands. Are you ready to find out what happened when the roles were reversed? Get ready for a terrific saga of love, infidelity, and the possibility of healing. Welcome to a world of dramatic courtroom stories that will leave you thrilled and asking questions about the nature of fidelity and forgiveness. 12 years together. 10 of them married. No children. It seemed like we would be together forever. Went through a lot. Didn't leave her when we found out she was infertile. Gave her up in the end. Cheated on her in the 8th year of marriage. Didn't split up for a lot of reasons. I didn't care about the divorce. There was a lie at work, plus my younger sister was sick. Her lover disappeared almost as soon as I found out. So she decided to go out with him, but he didn't need that. All he wanted was intimacy. Her explanation for everything is very simple. She just fell in love, and couldn't stop. With some grief, with some teeth grinding, they survived that too. Next, we were advised to go to a priest and a family psychologist. We went to the priest, not to a psychologist. My wife said that she realized that she really loved only me, but it was already too late. I didn't forgive the affair. Why didn't you get a divorce? Honestly, I don't know. Maybe I was just tired and was exhausted. After 3 years, we switched places. I was sent on a business trip, and there I met a woman. Now I was going crazy. She and I were a reflection of each other. Both of us had broken families. Both had second halves betrayed. Both tired, burned out, and broken. And everything was turned upside down. We weren't hiding or playing the games our halves were playing. We went to pieces. Both of us were living each other, going crazy. The bed was just on fire, and our spouses were now in our place. Now they were drinking their fill, trying to save the family and get through to us. My wife wrote to both her and her husband, trying to talk to me, trying to get me out of it. Her husband tried to beat me up, but he couldn't. He tried to talk to me on the phone and so caught me on the street, both before and after seeing her. Our spouses were freaking out and getting hysterical and organizing a boycott, but it was too late. We couldn't hear anything and didn't want to. Both of us were getting divorced. Both of us wanted to start out, just the two of us, with a clean slate, and then something happened. She said no. Short phone call. Sorry, I'm staying with my husband. So abruptly it was over. And then, a ringing silence, that's all. The first time I didn't live, I was like a zombie. I was in shock, prostration. I couldn't believe it was over. I tried to get her back, tried to call her, caught her on the street, but the answer was the same every time. Tears and the same words. I wanted to beat up her husband and take her away, but she forbade me. I hated my wife. There was wild anger, hatred, and rage. At all my wife's tantrums, pleading with her to stop and start over, I just went wild. I trashed almost the whole house, started drinking, and then friends, booze, and easy access women. This time, practically like with my wife's cheating, my relatives pulled me out, and again everything went back in a circle. Relatives, acquaintances, friends, my father-in-law. But this time they took me to a marriage counselor. It was no use. I could not forgive my wife. I could not forget her and fall out of love for a long time. And then came the dead doldrums. After a while, the former mistress left with her husband for his homeland in Belarus. Later, about 2 years or so later, I saw on social media that they had reconciled, that they had had another child. I was burnt out, there was nothing left. I lived with my wife by inertia. She was fussing, doing something, saying something. But I don't want anything. I am burned out. I don't believe in anything. This kind of isolation in myself has led me to a lot of philosophical thoughts, and I would like to share one of them with you. In general, who is number one? The husband or the lover? What is a married woman getting a man on the side? It means, at the very least, falling in love. And falling in love, that the number one male in her perception is the one she has a crush on. What's your number one? Not even number two. Why? Because she knows she's doing a bad thing. And she has to justify herself, otherwise her conscience will gnaw. How will she do that? She will invent or ponder your shortcomings. But respect for you already undermined by falling in love with another, she will drop even lower. Because everyone has heard rave reviews about the lovers. I had never experienced anything like that before. I have never felt so good with anyone, and so on. New emotions and falling in love forgive a wife's memory of the past. The husband for a woman in the true, not legal sense, is the one she has the last heartfelt and intimate partner. With the legal one, however, intimacy is already by duty. It is as if the wife sacrifices herself to conceal the affair on the side. To her lover at the same time, she tells tales that she hasn't slept with you for a long time, so as not to traumatize his self-esteem. To cheat on you, she went some way from the interest in the other to the intimacy with him. That same intimacy with overcoming a barrier. After all, she is a decent woman, but love is stronger. She struggled with herself for a while, for sure, but she went for it. After all, she had stepped over a lot, but she went through with the betrayal. Whose fault is it that she cheated on you? Have you guessed? You, of course. Why? Because it wasn't her. You're to blame for her downfall. It's axiomatic. Ridiculous, isn't it? And if you forgive her for the adultery that has come to light, do you think she will forgive you for forgiving you? You will increase in her eyes, or fall permanently. By your forgiveness, you kind of gave the go-ahead for that very intimacy with another, and her life after that hardly anything has changed. The most powerful test of a male leader, her husband does not pass. That's it, he doesn't pass. That's right, he's a wimp. That's the kind of thing women never forgive. And you thought about not forgiving your cheating perceived as nobility of a man? No, as a weak man. And women don't want a weak man. It's a law of nature. Conclusion. Can you become her number one man again? No. Respect is lost once, especially in a field like this. She deceived you, cheated on you. What makes you think she's suddenly honest with you now? You don't think so, you want to believe her. But you do now. At the height of your fear of loss and change in your life. Soon it will pass, and your life will start with a sour feeling of jealousy inside and pent-up anger and depression. Such resentment in a man does not wear off. Over time, all the same crisis, the so-called crisis in quotes, will return. Dear listeners, if you liked this video, do not forget to like it, and also write in the comments what you think about it. I'm sure in your experience and life journey, there have been many stories similar to this one, and you have stories to tell. It will be very interesting to read. I won't say goodbye, and see you soon.